We are finally back at it. A MEGAPOD edition with the Reload Gang. I am Carson Cunningham, joined by Colby Powell as always. But now we are joined by Justin Southwell, Nathan Gilsleider, and Marshall Scott, the Reload boys, the Reload Gang, pistols firing, taking over the internet tonight. So we finally got all of our schedules to coordinate. Apologies, I was out sick last week. God, I was on like my deathbed, the worst case of like flu you could imagine. But like Doc Holliday, I wasn't as sick as I made out, and here we are. So we have a lot to discuss, boys. Normally, this time of year, we're kind of looking ahead to what bowl game OSU is going to be in, what weedeater.com bowl projections are out there over the last 3 or 4 years. But we got Eric Morris introduced this week as the new head coach at Oklahoma State. We'll get to all that and everything, but first, let's hear from Chris's University Spirit, your one-stop cowboy shop. Be sure to shop at chrisuniversityspirit.com. I don't have my ad going on right now, but I've done this read for about 10 years now, so we can just go off the top of the dome. You know Chris's, right, located right there in Campus Corner. And I got to think a lot of people will be making their way to Gallagher Iba, and if doing so, you know where to stop to get the latest, greatest Oklahoma State apparel. We appreciate them sponsoring this, not only our podcast, but the Reload podcast as well, and really just being a great supporter of Pistols Firing Blog for, 10 years now, something like that. It's been a long time, so we appreciate them as always. Guys, before we get into the introduction of Eric Morris, everything we like about the hire, there's a lot to get to there. You know, I was, I believe, a sophomore at Oklahoma State sitting in a sociology class, very easy class. We all probably took that class. I know the athletes did. They were all in there with me. And I opened up the Okali, and it was the big spread of Mike Gundy being announced as the new head coach. That was 20 years ago. This is not something we've seen in quite some time at Oklahoma State. We really don't know what Oklahoma State football really truly looks like without Mike Gundy, because he came in along with Boone Pickens at the same time. So first, guys, we'll go clockwise here. We'll start with Southwell up in the upper left. We got what'd you call it, Colby? The Pentabox?
The Pentabox. That's not me. I stole that straight from Scott Hansen. So we're Pentaboxing it tonight. I told a buddy that we were doing this today. I texted him, and he texted me back some PG-13 things. So I think people are excited for the Pentabox.
I feel like Scott Hansen. I feel like around the horn, like Tony Reale. I need to have like the buzzer out and like ping you guys for negative comments or positive, all those things.
I like it.
You mute us too.
I wish I had a mute button. Yeah, sometimes I need that for myself. But Justin, Nathan, especially you two guys. I mean, you guys were on the football team. You have just great perspective to provide for just this program, what it entails, and kind of turning over a new chapter. So just, I guess, off the top, Justin, just what's it like for you being a former player, played under Mike Gundy, changing of the guard? Is it as weird for you as it is just for us fans that have just known nothing else for the last 20 years?
It is. But how fortunate has Oklahoma State been to be in this position that they are, where they have not had to have major turnover in the football realm like they have for like basketball, for example. We're still going through it because of that. And of course, we're finally making a little bit of a rebound now, but it is weird. And I also consider myself a very big Oklahoma State fan. Grew up a Gundy fan. And so whenever I finally got to play for him, that was awesome. And then coming out on the other side, still a big fan of him. And yeah, just being able to see what the whole transition's looking like. Of course, we're starting to find out that even some of the guys that have been on staff for a very long time are also packing their bags and heading to other adventures. So it's a very unique time right now. But it's leaving me a little bit sad for some of these guys, but also very excited. I'm sure that a lot of fans across Oklahoma State could feel that.
Yeah. For me, it's like this odd juxtaposition of like excitement for what's new and like a little bit of sadness, because I couldn't help myself but like watching that press conference and being like, that should have been Mike on the other side of that jersey. Like the what should have been and what could have been. And we all know there's various reasons on why that wasn't. So it's just odd because to some of his detriment, Mike made himself the brand of Oklahoma State. And so they were synonymous with each other, really. And that's just no longer. Some of it for the best. I think Oklahoma State needed to separate itself and really elevate its brand. And some of the things, like even we talked about, like Coach Morris even bringing up like open practice. Like, oh, who would have thought? Like, what a crazy idea to grow the brand and do stuff like that. But yeah, it's a weird feeling, man. You go, you go every Saturday or whatever that was, and it was synonymous with Oklahoma State football. But it is exciting in some areas as well. So absolutely.
And yeah, so we sort of talked beforehand about me being the youngest in here. So my whole life has pretty much just been Mike Gundy is Oklahoma State's football coach. I was born in '95, so that's not actually the case. But whenever I'm young, I just think those years that Les beat OU, I just thought Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma. That was I wasn't really thinking about the coach back then necessarily. So basically, my whole existence, it's felt like Mike Gundy has been Oklahoma State's football coach. So yeah, it's weird, it's exciting. But I don't know. Things change and things keep going. So I'm excited about it. Hopefully Mike gets his flowers whenever he's sort of ready to receive those. But yeah, I'm stoked about sort of what's next.
Yeah, Marshall and I would only be considered old if we were on the Thunder roster. My whole life has pretty much been Mike Gundy. I have vague memories of the Les Miles era, but for me, that makes this so exciting because in my adult lifetime, I have not gotten to experience the hope of a coaching change with Oklahoma State football. And I think that that's what this brings to the fan base. Like, we know what Mike Gundy was for 18 years, but it's not a secret what it was the last 2 years either. It's not a secret how the bottom fell out of this thing. Even Coach Morris, he knows, right? And I think that there was a little bit of that undertone in the press conference, and there was a lot of thank you, Mike, thank you, Mike, thank you, Mike. And I get it, but there was also, Coach Morris talked about how the modern era of college football allows you to turn a roster over quicker, allows you to kind of get into what you want to do much more quickly than you used to be able to. He talked a lot about hitting the portal hard. I think we're going to see a lot of green turning orange come early January with North Texas guys coming to Stillwater. We've already seen it with coaches. I mean, even the strength coach, Carson, we talked a couple of weeks ago about whether Rob Glass would stick around. We both guessed that probably wouldn't happen just based on the fact that Coach Morris is going to want to have his guys in. And quite frankly, after 3-9 and 1-11, it's probably good to just bring a whole new batch of guys in and do things your way. So everything Coach Morris said on Monday, tweeting out the picture of the cheese fries, like, he seems like he gets it. And when he talks about recruiting and hell yes, we can win a championship at this place, like all of the things Oklahoma State fans have wanted to hear for a long time about, no, we are not some small little program that has to jump through hoops to try to catch up with the giants of college football. This is Stillwater, and we can do it here. I feel like I've been waiting my entire adult life to hear that. I think the closest we got was we've got a logo too, whenever Mike Gundy shoved it in those crybabies' faces in South Bend, Indiana. Other than that, it's been a whole lot of we're too poor, we've got to overcome OU, this Bedlam game. I wanted to hear what Coach Morris was preaching the other day, which is this is Stillwater, this is good enough, and we can do it here.
Yeah, the Reload podcast and us as well have talked so much about Eric Morris and his coaching acumen, all the quarterback whispering. We've talked so much about ball and not about the person. I think that's really one thing that stood out to me too, Colby, is just we got some insight onto kind of what he's like and what he's about. And I guess just to go around the horn again, quote on around the horn, what stood out to you guys the most about his introductory? For me, it was getting beyond just the coaching and just what type of person is he. And I think probably one of the more kind of things I hadn't really thought a ton about. I knew he was from shallow water, Texas, small town, things of that nature. But just the overall fit of him being a small town guy, wanting to raise his family there. That family was obviously a focal point of that press conference. It really kind of invigorated, I think, a lot of the people that are scared he's going to take another job. For me, that stood out to me greatly in that unless Texas Tech comes calling, this guy wants to win big here for a very, very long time. And the Texas Tech thing's always going to be kind of lurking out there, but as we all know, they're rolling with Joey McGuire currently, so it's not something to really get concerned about right now. But for me, guys, Justin, the fit, the small town nature, along with all of the great things and the reasons he was hired, for me, is why I think this has been so universally approved by everyone, fans, media, national pundits, you name it. Everyone's giving this hire an absolute A.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard or seen anybody say anything bad about Eric Morris in the coaching search. And even after the hire was made, it was like, this is a home run hire by every metric that's out there. And, I think that as far as looking ahead, people are already considering what's the future look like 3-5 years down the road. If he's going to go to Texas Tech, should we be worried about that? He has not even won a game in Boone Pickens Stadium yet, which he's talked about numerous times. It's like, let's get that turned around for you real quick. But I love the fact that we're already thinking about that kind of stuff. I always think about Bill Self at Kansas. Goes up there, builds, he's got that program rolling. He could have come to Oklahoma State a number of times, and he's chosen to stay at Kansas. I feel like that could be the same kind of thing that's brewing here with Eric Morris, the way that he's talking about it and the way he wants to grow his family here. So I'm not really too worried about it. And of course, we need to focus on winning first before any of that really gets brought up. But it is funny how we're always just looking ahead and never in the moment. I was just like, let's enjoy this moment now and let's go through the off season and start winning some games. But that, along with the social media presence, which probably is a little bit overrated, but at least we have something going. I love the fact that he's got some, Eskimo Joe's going on, and just really fitting right in from the jump. We don't have to worry about that. So direct connection with the fans is always a good thing.
Yeah, you nailed it, Carson. I think when you and we brought this up last time we talked, Justin, like, I love Josh Pate. I think he's like the gold standard for talking about college sports. The one thing he always says, though, is like, fit is overrated. And I couldn't disagree more, especially when you look at what Oklahoma State wanted, what the fan base wanted, what he wanted from a school. Like, there couldn't be a better fit. And I really got that from the way that he talked about his desires and things like that. One of my biggest frustrations, you guys have talked about it often, is like the little man syndrome of like, well, why do you have to feel that way about Oklahoma State? Why can't they? We've done it in every other sport. I understand football is a different animal, but we've dominated periods in every other sport. And just because, you've got somebody down south that's got this history and stuff like that doesn't mean you can't. And I felt for a while now that Coach Gundy and even some staff like accepted their fate in certain ways. And like, you got none of that from Eric Morris. Like, hell yeah, we can win a championship. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Right. I hope you have signs up all over. I hope that's what you walk out to. I hope that's in the weight room. I hope that's starting to get plastered, because it is a mindset that we've been missing. And I really felt that energy and newness in things like that. Those are the things that stuck out to me. I mean, the guy traveled with like an entourage of like 20 dudes to his opening press conference. Like, the family's all in. He's all in. And the Stillwater community's already bought in. Listen, if you lose a coach, it means you're winning. That is collateral damage I will gladly accept every single day of the week. When is the last time we've had somebody besides Jim Knowles that was sought out because we were winning too many football games? Doesn't happen. And it hasn't happened in a long time. Right, Carson? I mean, like, you guys have talked about that forever. Like, we're scared to hire somebody because maybe he'll leave in 2 years. So what, man? Like, that's winning culture. People want to be a part of winning culture. We've missed that. Eric Morris instilled that in a half a day. Like, oh, okay, I like the way he's talking. Let's do this. So that was kind of like my main takeaway, is like, I felt something again, energy-wise, that's been missing from that building.
Yeah, mine, and Carson sort of mentioned this a little bit. Mine had to do with the small town atmosphere stuff, because being a small town Oklahoma kid, I felt like, and I heard, shallow water Texas, but just hearing him sort of like hammer home the small town points, I was like, this feels exactly like, whenever I was 18 and I got to Stillwater, sort of how I felt about everything. So I like that Stillwater is still a small town, but we've got 3 Walmarts at Stillwater. That's elite. Whenever I was growing up,
is that true?
3 Walmarts.
There's 3?
There's a neighborhood mart out by Academy now. It's the newest one, I think. We still call 6th Street the new Walmart, even though it's not very new anymore. And then Perkins is, I'm only going to Perkins if I'm like at Chick-fil-A and I've really got to go to Walmart. So, but yeah, so that's the type of stuff that I really, resonated with, was sort of his small town talk. I liked the fact that, he mentioned his wife is from some small town in Arkansas. He's from some small town in West Texas. And literally it's a 6-hour drive from each of those places to Stillwater. So, whenever you're talking about, things leaving and stuff like that, it's like, well, this seems like, based on everything he's saying, a really perfect spot for him to be. And then as crazy as it seems, and Colby mentioned this last time, seeing him tweet out the picture of the cheese fries, to me, that was like the most in I've been on Oklahoma State football in some time. And that's a weird thing to get fired up about, but I was just like, this is awesome that this guy, you know, is really embracing the town, is embracing, you know, what Stillwater is in a lot of ways. In a weird way, Stillwater is some Eskimo Joe's cheese fries. So I think, you know, the phrase winning the press conference gets thrown around all the time. And, you know, who really, it doesn't really matter. You know, what matters is what happens on the field. But as far as that press conference win, I really felt like he just about did no wrong all day.
Yeah, I loved all those same things that you guys loved. And I talked about just the culture and we can do it in Stillwater and all that stuff. But I loved the way he talked about quarterbacks and how he evaluates quarterbacks and how it's different from what everyone else is doing. If I take a 3-star, don't be mad at me. He's already getting up there day one. I mean, he just walked into town. He just got off the jet, and he's like, look, 247 and rivals, they don't tell me how good quarterbacks are. I tell everyone else how good quarterbacks are. You want to know how good Patrick Mahomes is? I'll tell you. I'll tell you how good Baker Mayfield is. John Mateer, Drew Mestamaker, Cam Ward, I'll tell you how good those guys are because I have a formula for evaluating quarterbacks. He talked about the mental processing, how he puts them through tests. He literally said they have a formula to evaluate quarterbacks. I want to see the spreadsheet. I want to see the notebook, the handwritten notes. I want to know the formula. I'm never going to know the formula, but I would love to. And that just gives me a ton of confidence that, like, look, he talked a ton about recruiting and that he wants to go out and get the guys, right? And he's going to have more resources at Oklahoma State, obviously, than he's ever had in his career. But he also said, look, rankings be damned. I know who I want back there throwing the football because I know who can run my system. And that's how he found Cam Ward, total diamond in the rough, ran a triple option before he came over to Coach Morris, and he saw him, saw his arm talent, saw his processing, number one pick, he's in the NFL. Drew Mestamaker, he wasn't the starting quarterback at his high school for his varsity team. Coach Morris saw how he threw the football, put him through his tests, used his formula, did the calculations, and decided Drew Mestamaker is going to lead the league in passing and lead the nation in passing in 2 years. So, yeah, I am so beyond excited to have a coach that I feel like is coming in for all of the greatness that was 18 years of Mike Gundy. The one flaw was, how do we keep getting the quarterback decision wrong on the first try, and it has to reveal itself as wrong, and then we pivot to the right move? Like, I'm really excited about the prospect of not having to go through Alex Cate to get to Brandon Weeden. Let's just go straight to Brandon Weeden. Let's cut out the middleman. So everything he had to say about quarterbacks on Monday really, really got me going.
My guy Alex Cate is taking straight shots.
I'm sorry, Alex Cate. I'm sure you're a great guy.
No,
it was just an example. Just an example.
It's the perfect example. I'm just kidding.
Is he your guy?
I loved Alex Cate. He was such a cool dude. Brandon Weeden was by far and away the more talented guy, but Alex Cate was a cool dude.
Okay, we'll set the record straight here. All we ever heard was that, you know, we knew Weeden wasn't a great practice player. Was Cate just playing him off the field or what? What was going on there?
No, okay.
I know there was some money, maybe. This is pre-NIL, but I heard there's some money elements.
We're asking Nathan to pull the curtain back.
I'm going to mix a little fact with opinion here, okay? So fact is Alex Cate was on scholarship, and he was number 2 behind Zach. Brandon was the first-round pick of the Yankees, and as part of such, when you do that, you get money for school. He said, I'm going to forego going to Oklahoma State. He signed with Oklahoma State. So when he didn't make it to the bigs, he then got school money. And so that's what happens when these guys that come from the major leagues and don't make it. So they'll say, well, I'm not going to give you a scholarship because Major League Baseball is paying for your school. So Coach Gundy being such, he's like, well, this is my guy in scholarship. I recruited him. He's going to get his first shot no matter what. There was no thought that Alex was a better thrower of the football than Brandon, but you knew that Alex was going to get the first shot. Like, so Brandon, you can go ask him, like, he just didn't really care because he knew that he was third. And so like he would take chances on passes and practice and things like that just because he could, just because he had a rocket arm. And so Coach Gundy would get irritated because he'd throw it into windows that you shouldn't be throwing it into. And Brandon's like, so what? Whatever. And so, I mean,
Brandon, throw it sideways.
It was one of those things that it was like, I remember telling my parents, because that was my senior night in Colorado. And so I remember telling my parents, and they're like, what are we going to do without Zach? And I was like, if Brandon gets in, we're going to be just fine. Like, don't worry about it. and the rest is history. So
I think that was pre-Twitter. I would have been tweeting, "Why is Whedon not in the game in the first half?" But in fairness to Alex, there was still the Zach Robinson offense. It didn't exactly fit Brandon, so I get it to a certain degree. But we didn't need to catch any strays for Alex here.
No.
Alex, but no, quarterback's certainly going to be exciting. I think we all kind of expect Mestamaker, provided the money's going to be there, to come to Stillwater. And one thing we do need to discuss, though, is Raj Murthy officially announced to the staff, as well as Rolando Sarita as the program's chief of staff. Raj Murthy would be the GM. I want to get y'all's perspective on this guy, because I actually read about him, gosh, whenever it was, I think it was late October, when I reported that Morris had interviewed for the job. I started doing some research, and this guy just flew off the page. He was only like 24 years old. I think Colby's got, is that Russell Westbrook?
I wondered how long it was going to take you to notice. Everybody else was giggling. I was like, I guess I'm just going to hold the cat here for like 30 seconds until Carson realizes I distracted you from your Raj Murthy thought for the cat. The cat needs a little airtime sometimes. He gets excited when we start doing this. Well,
I brought you up because you pointed out that Raj Murthy started at Houston at like age 19 and like has just been on a rocket ship up the ladder. And I think I just want to get y'all's perspective on this guy. I mean, and just, this is kind of the changing of the guard we talked about to start the show. Is like Mike Gundy's no longer here, as is the entire infrastructure. He's hiring all his guys, which, as you guys know and people listening, this is a relationship business. You're going to hire people you trust, people you've worked with, and that's what we're seeing with every hire that gets announced. But we'll start with Marshall and go clockwise, so we mix it up a little bit. But Marshall, just your thoughts on him, what he'll bring to the table, and just what do you expect? I mean, he's already hit the ground running. He's already in Stillwater in his office along with Morris. Just what do you expect from him?
Yeah, in some ways, it's sort of hard to know what to expect because Oklahoma State hasn't really operated in the modern game of college football to this point. So I'm sort of excited to learn the ins and outs of what a GM actually does because I haven't had to fully pay attention to one. But you mentioned his youth. That's just like some crazy stuff. He graduated with a degree in finance from Houston in 2 years because he had so many high school or college credits coming out of high school. So a ridiculously smart dude. One thing I thought was interesting, I can't remember where this was said, but he essentially, is acting. It allows for Morris to be more personable with the players because he knows that he's not going to have to be the guy that, tells that kid, hey, we don't have the money for you at this point, and not that Raj is, looking to be the bad guy at all points, but just to have that level of separation from the head coach to allow him to, coach in the modern college football game. That might sound a little crazy that, a head coach has to coach every once in a while, but I think that's the interesting part to me is that Oklahoma State is just sort of modernized and this hasn't happened yet. So yeah, I'm sort of interested. Just what does a GM actually do? What are some of his responsibilities? How good is he at handling this stuff? So I'm super excited about it. It seems like Oklahoma State's got a good one by, all the articles you read about Raj. It's a name on the rise. Is super young. We talked about him. I talked about him with somebody today, and the fact that he's 24 and again, I'm 30, that just doesn't feel right. There are NBA players that are younger than me nowadays, but it feels super odd, that this guy is, already the GM of a Division I football team, and I'm 30 years old on a podcast talking about him. So now I'm excited about it. I just don't really know what to expect because Oklahoma State hasn't operated in this space before.
Yeah, it's weird to think that he was born in 2001. Marshall said he's talked about as a rising star. He has to be talked about as a rising star. He just got here. 24 years old is absurd to be doing a job like this. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I just kind of paused it out loud. Is he too young for a job like this? Obviously, Coach Morris wouldn't have him in this position if he felt like he was. Coach Morris actually reached out to Dana Holgerson and somebody maybe in Lubbock. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I think it was Sonny Dykes.
Sonny Dykes. Yes, it was Sonny Dykes at TCU. He reached out to Dana Holgerson and Sonny Dykes the day that he interviewed Raj Murthy. And he was like, guys, am I crazy? Am I crazy for wanting to hire this kid to be my general manager? He's barely older than some of the players, and he's probably younger than a handful of players on the roster. Guys who've been around, COVID year stuff, guys who have had medical red shirts. There's 24 and 25-year-olds on college football teams all the time. And he called these guys and he's like, am I crazy to bring him in and hire him? But he was so impressed by his interview. He was so impressed by what he brought in. He said it was a spreadsheet like he'd never seen before in his life. He had a detailed plan of exactly how a college football program should run. So if you get a savant in the door and the savant just so happens to be 22, 23 at the time when he hired him at North Texas, 24 now to bring him to Oklahoma State, I guess you kind of throw age out the window and you hire the best guy for the job. He obviously made the most out of the resources at North Texas. North Texas just had their best season ever and lit the world on fire with their offense. So I think it's really exciting to have him coming in. And Carson, we've talked about some of these old coaches, not just us, everybody's talked about it. Some of these old coaches have struggled to adapt to modern college football because it's so different than what they've always known. This is all Raj Murdy knows, guys. Like, this is all he knows. He just became legal to drink a couple of years after COVID happened. He was able to legally go to the bar. Like, he didn't have to worry about not getting to go to the bar during COVID because he wasn't old enough. Yeah, he's a kid. So I like that element that this is all he's ever known.
Some great points, Colby. Hard to argue. I wonder about his age and how it relates to other college guys and how that dynamic is between college kids who are essentially, I don't know if they're taking orders from him, but he's around my age, it looks like. So that's interesting, I guess. But from all accounts that I've seen, it seems like he does a great job. So I'm excited to see what he does over at Oklahoma State. But I almost have a little bit more of a higher expectation for him because of that. And maybe that's fair, maybe that's not, but I'm going to be pretty critical of how he's able to construct a roster given the additional resources at Oklahoma State compared to North Texas, and then what he's able to do as far as what this looks like in a couple of years. Because, I mean, Eric Morris is essentially leaning on him to do what head coaches historically have done in the past, in my knowledge, as far as going out and recruiting these guys and developing a roster and keeping those guys around. And, you know, you're leaning on a 24, 25-year-old to do a lot of that. And then you kind of free yourself up for some other time of the relational aspect of things. But yeah, it's, I wouldn't say that I would envy being in his position, I guess, from, you know, it all flows up through Eric Morris. But in today's college football, I think a lot of light shines on GMs more than ever because it's, you know, something that's being talked about more than ever. So,
yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on something there that Southwell and Marshall said, Eric Morris not having to deal with as much of the player stuff and as much of the roster building and as much of the salary cap type stuff, having a GM in place to do that. He also talked about the fact that he wants to call plays. He feels like that's how he stays in the competition and he stays locked in with his guys every Saturday. And if this is his guy that he trusts, I mean,
oh, I think we lost Colby.
Yeah, Colby, you somehow muted in the middle of that. It was riveting stuff, though.
I blame it the dog or the cat. I'm not sure
I
which.
think the dog got it, yeah.
I can almost guarantee it was the dog. What are you doing, dog? My animals love to me a lot from the recording. I was just saying
we
that,
lost
like,
Colby. You
Your mic's
sound
not
like
on
you're
now.
in a phone booth. We'll go to Nathan while Colby works out with the bugs. We're used to bugs on our show. We're used to malfunctions on our show, so we'll just roll with it.
Yeah, no, I've long since said, like, this was the second most important thing that Oklahoma State was going to do was the restructuring. You get a head coach in place. What does that all entail? And these two hires are literally the foundation of that. From what I've been told and things like that, Oklahoma State was very far behind, structurally speaking, of what that looked like and how they went after players, how they valued players, their valuations, how they would go back and forth. It was way different than where we need it to be and where we want it to be. And I really think that this brings that up light years because Coach Morris had joked a little bit about, like, hey, man, he does like all these functions in Excel I didn't even know happened. You copy and paste and, you put all these – he was joking about it the other day. But I really do think that is a freeing up because when you look at it, ball coaches want to coach ball, man. Like, that's what they want to do. Everything else is just something they have to do. And so you brought up a good point, Colby. Like, if this allows him to do what his superpower, and he can like lean on Raj a little bit more when he gives valuations and how much we can go offer and do all these type of things, like, hey, I'm all for it. And I don't think a kid who's young as he was gets put in the positions that he got in and then continues to do this by accident. Like, that's just, I fully trust this process. And it's something that whenever I first looked at it really enticed me about Coach Morris, is like what that would mean for an entire restructuring of what Oklahoma State does. And I'm really excited about it.
I'm going to read an ad now. I don't know how to. I don't transition nearly as smoothly as Carson and Colby did.
Nathan said the word process. He teed you up.
Well, I was in my own head reading. I was like, I got to read aloud here in a second. So, yes, this Megapod is brought to you by Brewster Consulting Group. Do any of these sound familiar at your company? Our processes are manual and inefficient with no documentation. Our data reporting takes forever and isn't accurate. We hear all the hype about AI, but have no clue what it actually means for our business. Our projects always run over time and over budget. If so, talk with our friends at Brewster Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data and reporting, and technology that actually works for you. Their team of 6 Sigma Black Belts, PMP certified project managers, and seasoned data engineers have delivered solutions that are built to last for local clients like the Tulsa International Airport and Medify. They've also delivered solutions for large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, Brewster was founded and is run by a proud OSU alum and season ticket holder. Learn more about them at www.brewsterconsulting.com or learn more about their methodologies by connecting with them at Brewster Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube.
Well done, Marshall. Great process.
That was some of my best reading aloud work, even going back to like high school and middle school. That was some of my best work.
So that was an ad. We're going to do sports talk now.
Yeah.
Bingo. Yeah. Now back to sports.
Back to your regular scheduled programming. I mean, we know Raj and the staff hires keep trickling in. I've actually heard that Ray Brown, the cornerbacks coach for the 49ers, is in talks with OSU, likely to join the staff. He actually is from Oklahoma City, played at East Central, a lot of local ties there, and was with Morris at Washington State. So that there'll be more hires that are announced. But we also know hires that are current staffers that are being let go. That a lot of reporting has been going on with that. A lot of names like the offensive line coaches Mitchell and Bassett have announced they're moving on. But one of the larger figures within those walls in there in the West End zone is Rob Glass, and him and Gundy have been synonymous with one another, much like Mike has with the school. But I didn't realize Rob Glass got there in 1989. I thought he came over from Florida, but he was there in '89, then went to Florida, then came back with Mike. And I kind of expected this. We'll start with Southwell and then Nathan and go around because you guys have much greater experience with Rob Glass. And for people like me and Colby and Marshall, we know he knows strength and conditioning. We know he's one of the foremost strength coaches in the country. We know what he's done in his body of work. Curious your thoughts on just how big of a loss is this for Oklahoma State, and just any other stories you may have from your time there.
Yeah, it is a big loss, but we've also said this before. No one person is bigger than the program. Oklahoma State is built up to a place where they're going to be fine without Coach Glass. Now, sentimentally, absolutely it hurts. This guy is a legend, and it was just absolutely amazing to be able to work underneath him. And yeah, I'm definitely going to miss him. He's just he's got a way of elevating you. Like, you think that you're putting it all out there and you're giving it your all. And he has a way of looking at you to pull out a little more. It's a very scary thing, but it's also something that's elevated some of these 2-3 stars up to 4 and 5 star status. And you've seen that work. And so, even, just all the way down the roster to, I'm the 125th guy on the roster, and he still has a standard where everybody is going to meet his level of what it takes to be on this team. And you just have to appreciate that. That's just the way that he operates. And I don't necessarily know that he was able to operate in that same way in the NIL era. And ultimately it's led to OSU, I think, losing some games that they should have no business losing, which is really unfortunate. But I have nothing but excellent things to say about Coach Glass. And yeah, I do think it's a big loss, but at the same time, if you have any success tied to Oklahoma State, if you want to tie it to Mike Gundy, you also have to tie that to Rob Glass.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to separate my feelers on this because Coach Glass is probably the second most impactful coach in my life. You hear all the time, and Coach Gundy loved to say it, like culture, cowboy way. There's one man who implemented that, and that was Coach Glass. It wasn't Coach Gundy. Coach Gundy would show up and talk about it. Coach Glass would carry out the orders. And so he held every single person accountable. You were late to weights, 200 flights, didn't come to your weights. You got in trouble with your coach, come see me afterwards. You know what I mean? Like, he was that guy. And for everything that Coach Glass did, he was just like the linchpin. And so my greatest fear is one of the biggest mistakes Lincoln Riley made at OU was letting go of Jerry Schmidt. And he brought in his guy, and they got weak and soft, and they couldn't move anybody off the line, and yada, yada, yada. And I realize Oklahoma State hasn't been moving very many people off the line lately. And we can argue about why that is later. But when you let go of a guy like Coach Glass, that's what you're risking. And I have full faith. I'm all in on Coach Morris. Like, I'm not second guessing it, or, I don't know how this conversation went, but it's risky from that standpoint because he was the pillar and he was that guy. I mean, for me trying to make it coming over from just getting, injured from baseball, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go play football. And it's like, how do I fit in? And it was, you excel in the weight room with Coach Glass, and then he helps you fit in, and he doesn't say anything, but he gives you that nod, or he allows you to work out in a certain group. There's no like, hey, I'm going to work out in these groups it was a hierarchy. He knew exactly how to control your effort. He knew exactly how to control what you wanted to do. If you were a freshman and you were a hot shot and you wanted to come in, nah, man, you're on that podium over there, and you get to come. If you ever want to come with the big dogs, then I'll let you come lift with me. And that was all the tone that Coach Gundy wanted set, and that was Coach Glass himself. And so he was the standard. He was the backbone of the culture. I'm all in on Coach Morris, but honestly, this one stung me way more than Coach Gundy leaving. Like, because Coach Glass was everything to the players, and he was with us every single day.
I need to know these stories, Justin, of when he stared at you. Like, I want one good story from both of you in your experience with Rob Glass, and I'm kind of scared to hear it because I played soccer in high school and club and all that, and I had some workouts that were tough, but I can't even imagine like what he put you guys through.
I mean, it was rough. So one of my favorite stories actually wasn't directed at me, but I was witnessing it, so I have to share that. It's another fellow walk-on with us, and so we had off-season workouts, and Thursday was by far, I think, the hardest, where you just had like all the agility drills, and then you have power sleds and all kinds of stuff, and then you're finishing it off with 200s. It was rough, and then you turn around.
Describe 200s. What are 200s?
Okay,
like,
that's a good call.
Yeah,
200-yard sprints, which you have a time limit for, and you wrap around the end zone.
Yeah, so it's not from the 10
down and back. You're actually wrapping it around like you would on a track.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like from the 10, and you go all the way to the goal line, and they have the cone set up like a perfect curve, and then you come all the way over to the other side to make it 200 yards. And the only way that works,
touching the cones.
Yeah, you can't touch the cones. If you go inside the cone, everybody misses the time. Everybody has to cross the time at the same time. So the rabbit has to be usually around 4 to 5 seconds ahead of the time to make sure your whole group comes in on time. So it's a mental as much as physical at the end of your entire workout grind.
Plus the time gets shorter the further you go. So it doesn't get easier. It actually gets harder as you're going on.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can imagine just how much our lungs are pumping battery acid and how exhausted we are. You can't help but lean over and try to catch your breath. Well, I'm standing next to Nehemiah Mundy, and I'm just like, yo, bro, come on. I'm like, this is not good. So Coach Glass obviously he's locked in, and he sees him leaning over. So he comes over there, and he gets him to stand up, and he's like, what's the matter, Mundy? You out of breath? And he punches him in the chest. And it's like, if you can imagine how much you're already hurting and out of breath, and then he had to turn around, and we're starting back up for the next run. It was like, I would have passed out. I don't even know how he was able to manage it, but that was one of the, I know that I'm never, ever going to be leaning over to catch my breath in front of Coach Glass. You just got to be mentally tough, and you're standing up. So that was just a lesson that I learned through somebody else. It was brutal.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's those days, and I'll just say looking back on it, like, I don't know why you wanted to do this, but you essentially had to be like a dog. Like he would only allow you to do these workouts if you were one of these guys. So on Friday mornings, you would go and you do what's called stadiums. You go from the bottom of Boone Pickens all the way to the top. There's another coach sitting there. You tap the wall and you jump down all the way down. You go all the way back up. And I don't know, skill was usually between.
There's different grades.
Yeah.
In the stadium, so it starts off kind of easy and then it actually ramps up.
Yeah, and I used to know that how many steps I had because you were doing so many. You'd count the steps and you knew, okay, I've got 2 more, full, and then you do like, I think skill was, you started out in 20 and then by the end of the training year you were doing 30 plus, and then you went up big skill. And so Brandon Pettigrew, he hadn't gone to sleep, and so I'm sitting there, I'm coming straight over from baseball and I'm dying. I'm like, oh my gosh, like how am I gonna I gotta keep up. If I can keep up with Dez, if I can keep up with these guys, at least he's not gonna yell at me. And Brandon and Coach Glass is riding because he can tell, he can smell Brandon has not gone to sleep. And so he says, hey, big dog, you gonna be able to make it? And Pettigrew is a different animal. And he looks at him and he doesn't say a word, and he runs over and he joins our line and he beats every single one of us after not going to sleep. And I'm like, what did I just get myself into? Like that is a cyborg that just absolutely dominated. And you're like, oh, okay, that's first round draft pick, linchpin of Mike Gundy's turnaround. That makes sense. But for me, it's like coach didn't call him out. And then he went right over there and did that. And coach was like, all right, you can do it. Do it. And it was just stuff like that every single day. Right after that, if you were man enough, he'd let you go lift heavy legs. So you went straight from there, you changed your shoes, you went into the weight room, and you did heavy squats after doing that. And it was like, if you could do that, you get his respect. And that's how he controlled the locker room. And that's why everybody admired him, because he had the standard and it never dropped. Like that was his. And this, you meet this, you're in. If you don't, we'll send Coach G on you and he'll get you out.
It wasn't any easier because I was always in the second group. So I got about an hour of a break between the stadiums and the heavy leg lift. I don't know that it helped just to rest a little bit either, because you're laying there, you're trying to like elevate your legs where they're above on your locker, and just it doesn't help. But then you go right to class, and it seemed like every single class you had a set of stairs you had to climb. It was brutal. It was just like, what are we doing? My legs are completely cooked. But to the point of being absolute freaks, Nathan's got a cowboy wrestling hat on. I was walking out after a practice one day, and there were wrestlers carrying other wrestlers on their backs doing stadiums. Talk about different animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's insane. Wow. I couldn't imagine trying to say, if I can keep up with Des Bryant, who is one-of-one freakazoid, an all-time freak. Did you keep up with him, Nathan?
Yeah. Well, I will say this, and this is like I knew my place. I knew where I was at. Like, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, these are the things I have to do. And Justin brought up 200s. Like, if you're a rabbit on a 200 and you can do it, like, you gain a lot of respect. And so, like, that was it. I was like, all right, I'm going to be the rabbit for my group. And it was like, looking back on it, it's pretty crazy because it was like Des, Hubert Anium, Justin Blackman, Isaiah Anderson, a bunch of really fast. And Isaiah was a rabbit a lot, obviously. But you would alternate. Josh Cooper. So you would alternate. So each guy got just a little bit of a break. And so I was like, if I'm going to take this on, you better do it. Otherwise, your entire team is going to be pissed at you. And so I was like, luckily I found it. But yeah, that was it. That was my test. And I was like, all right, I'm going to either pass or I'm going to get booted off this thing. But here we go.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Great perspective on that. I don't know how you did it. I mean, I really don't. I mean, that's probably why you played football and I didn't. But Marshall, how much weight you've been throwing around, and what are your thoughts on Rob Glass not being on staff anymore?
I've got a squat rack in the garage, but the only standard that I'm held to out there is my own. So, but yeah, I haven't had a ton of interactions with him. But what I really like about Rob Glass is we just heard all the stories, and he's essentially a warden of sorts. And anytime I ask a player, and it's like, hey, what do you think about, like, what was summer workouts like? And they're like, that was the craziest thing I've ever done in my life. And then, but at the end of all that, at the end of this guy killing them, everybody just speaks so glowingly of, the work that he's done. So that's what I think is really cool about Rob Glass, is that he apparently just kills everybody that goes and works out under him, but then they all enjoy it somehow afterwards. So that's the like weird dichotomy that I keep hearing about. But yeah, it was such a big deal. I remember whenever I was writing for the Ocali, I think it was Nathan Ruiz wrote a big Body by Glass feature, and that was sort of my indoctrination into who Rob Glass is and all that stuff. And yeah, like these guys said, it's just such a cool thing. It's something that was a little bit worrying to me is, and this is the second time that Josh Pates got mentioned on the show, which is a little odd, but Pate mentioned whenever Brian Kelly got the LSU job that he just sort of went in there and then just sort of tore some guys out of their, deep rooted positions. I don't think that this was what happened. Oklahoma State posted a picture of the two talking whenever Morris first got there. So like, I don't think that was, how that happened, but Pate was like, a lot of LSU struggles were because they just axed the strength coach out of nowhere when Brian Kelly got there. So like, I don't think that that's going to happen. I think this is an entirely different thing, but that's just sort of like the line you walk whenever you're, trying to implement a new culture, while still, paying homage to the previous one. So yeah, it's a tragedy. I'm still excited about, what Oklahoma State can do, what Morris can do with his staff. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about Rob Glass from all the players I've talked to over the years.
Yeah, I mean, Rob Glass, really until these last 2 years, nobody questioned anything about Oklahoma State's strength and conditioning, about turning 2 stars into 4 stars, about all stuff like that. Body by Glass, like that was a mantra at Oklahoma State. Body by Glass. We've all heard it forever. And I just came at it from a very pragmatic point of view, which is the bottom falling out the way it did. And if you're pressing the reset button, are you pressing the reset button with 7 figures going toward the strength and conditioning coach? Like, he had worked himself up under Coach Gundy for 20 years to where he had earned that, right? But now Coach Gundy's gone and it's a new administration, and money in college football matters. Every last dollar. I mean, $100,000, that could be the difference in having a decent right guard or not, being able to run the ball up the middle or not. And wherever you can save some money, you save some money. You're saving $3 million as head coach. I would guess you're going to be saving at least $500,000 as strength and conditioning coach. It's just, I don't have the relationship with Rob Glass, so I'm able to just kind of look at it as like, hey, we're changing things. We're pressing the reset button. We're saving a lot of money. It just kind of is what it is. But I love hearing those stories about Coach Glass. And Marshall, to what you were saying, I think that, putting these guys through hell and then everybody loves them at the end of it, I think everyone appreciates, and probably because I'm in the parenting algorithm and I've read a parenting book and stuff, like kids, people like being held accountable. They like knowing what they're getting from you every day, consistency. And they like knowing that you're doing what you're doing so that they can be the best versions of themselves. And from what Nathan has said and what Justin has said and the stories we've heard about Rob Glass over the last 20 years, I would guess that is why he was so well respected from all the players who he just killed when it was 110 degrees in August, is he was consistent. They knew what they were getting from him every day. He held them accountable, and he got the best out of them, and you can respect that.
If you like consistency, turn to Wolf Corporation, Oklahoma's trusted commercial real estate listing brokerage since 2010. Their experienced team specializes in showcasing your retail, office, or industrial space to the right buyers and tenants across the state. And they're based right here in Oklahoma and deliver results with local expertise. Visit them at wolfcorporation.com. That's WULF corporation.com, or call 405-308-3480 today. Go Pokes. One last thing to tie up here with the Rob Glass deal. You mentioned Benny Wiley, Nathan. The new strength and conditioning coach, Kagans, has experience with him. I believe that's where he's coming from. Any concerns at all being that he's from that same kind of tree with Lincoln Riley and Benny Wiley? Because that was the knock on Wiley. When he got to OU, they got soft.
Yeah.
Now, this guy's his own man. He probably does things his own way, sure, but
yep.
I'm just curious your perspective on that.
Yeah, honestly, when I first saw that, I was just like you, Carson. I was like, oh, man. Because at the end of the day, the game of football hasn't changed. It's one man making another man do something against his will. I don't care what position it is. Like, that's what you have to do. And so, there's toughness, there's power, there's things that you just can't get away from in the game of football. Just like anything else, sometimes strength and conditioning coaches love to reinvent the wheel sometimes, and you get away from that because you're like, oh, I want force output, I want all these different little things, but at the end of the day, that doesn't help you do your job. So I say that to say, yeah, it does kind of worry me a little bit from that standpoint, but when he has broken away, and then what you were able to see what he did at UNT and what UNT did with their athletes, and the things that I've been able to read and look up on so far, it does seem like it is a delineation from that. It's not like a Benny Wiley type of program. So, one thing that Coach Morris brought up was like he wants to bring back midnight workouts. That's kind of a famous thing that some schools have always done. And I was like, hey, listen, Coach Glass is never doing a midnight workout. I'm just telling you that right now. He'll do a 4 a.m. workout. He's not doing a midnight workout. So just stuff like that. So I think that's what's coming with it. So it did worry me at first. To your point, Carson, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. But no, the more I read, I feel better about it.
Yeah, we'll have to let it play out. I want to go off script here a little. I want to get your thoughts on, I want to go around the horn in a second on, give me one reason why the Eric Morris hire wouldn't work out, or what one thing that you're kind of pausing on that you have questions about. But before I get to that, I just read an article from Bill Haston before we hopped on here, talking about Morris and going into more detail about he actually talked about Mike Gundy and how he had requested a kind of an exit interview, and Mike's not talking, and he understood why as of right now. But in that article, he reported that OSU spent $18 million in NIL, and rightly pointed out that was $18 million not well spent. And I bring that up to say there is no reason Oklahoma State can't be right there with Tech moving forward, money-wise. I mean, I've talked about it. You guys have talked about it. Now, are they going to have Cody Campbell money where they pumped in $49 million? Probably not. But that was a jarring figure for, I don't want to call Mike Gundy a lame duck coach, but for a program that was in tatters. So let's start with Colby. Colby, your thoughts on that figure and just what can OSU be now in this new era with this new staff, with Raj and all the money that's coming in?
Yeah, as long as you have the financial support, I don't see any reason why this would fail out of the gate. I think that the only way this really fails is if it gets off to a slow start and then the money kind of, dwindles away and people are like, well, I don't know. This is a lot of money for 5 and 7. You go 5 and 7 year 1, 6 and 6 year 2. All of a sudden, instead of getting $20 donations from a bunch of the fan base, that number starts to dwindle. But it's not something I really see happening. We've heard good things. You and I have both heard good things about what the financial backing of this program can be. And the idea that it was an $18 million roster this season on the heels of an 0-9 conference slate last year, which it's now been two full seasons without winning a conference game. I don't feel like that support has gone anywhere. And I feel like we were just waiting for that support to be reinvigorated. And I know all of us, I don't speak for you guys, but I think all of us have heard stories, rumblings about how much more money was out there if Mike Gundy was willing to do like just a little bit to go get that money, or even not even that much at all. If he was even just willing to accept that money and allow that pot to build. Carson, you threw out a number, maybe it was a month ago, 6 weeks ago, a 40 million number. I don't know, man. I've heard really good things about the financial backing of this program. I think that the 18 million that was spent this year, I think that was a fraction of what is available. I think there's going to be an initial boost from a bunch of small donors. I could get on and send $20. Everybody listening, get on and send $20 if you can. Merry Christmas, Oklahoma State. If 10,000 of us do it, boom, that's a bunch of money. I'm not going to do it off the top of my head. That's a bunch of money. But the big money donors are what's going to make it last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I think there are more of those running around Stillwater than people think. Like, oil money runs deep, and a lot of people spent a lot of years in Stillwater and made some money in that field. So I think there's going to be enough money to field a serious roster at Oklahoma State.
100% agree. I think if the only way he could fail is the just really the recruiting and portal misses, which I don't anticipate that happening, especially whenever so much of what makes a team good is having a good quarterback. And it sounds like Eric Morris is the quarterback whisperer. He can bring in whatever level of talent and elevate him to the next level. And that is, we've seen with Spencer Sanders, covers a lot of mistakes. And Spencer Sanders wasn't even one of those great quarterbacks, right? So I mean, you look at his career and you could argue it. But anyway, I'd say that plus the depth of maybe not so much the depth, but just the shape of the new Big 12. It's Oklahoma State's at the bottom and they could be near the top. You could say that about how many teams in the Big 12. It's like there's that money floating around for everybody. So the recruiting battles and all of that ties into it. And it's like roster turnover seems like it could happen any type over year. And it's kind of like, if he fails, it might just be a lack of consistency in one way or another that we've seen Gundy do for so well over his career as far as being consistent and continuity aspect. So if there's any path to failure, I could see it just being that there's so much chaos going on in the Big 12. There are so many things that you can control. There's a lot of things that are out of your control. And so, we're just obviously rooting for it to go in his favor.
Yeah, you brought the number the first. I've been told similar things that essentially there's nothing holding OSU back from at least being second in the Big 12 in money spent. Like, we're not chasing Tech, but the money's there if you'll just ask for it and you'll play your part. As you have talked about a lot, Carson, I've heard exactly the same things. But so that when you hear that figure, it's almost like nauseating, because it's like, how did you miss on all the key pieces and what it would take to just field a decent roster? Like, I don't know how that number can. It's almost mind-boggling when you see what was put out there every Saturday. I know they're giving everything they got, but just from a pure talent standpoint, and then you hear that number and you're like, that's not it's not registering here. Like, how does that happen? But for me, the biggest, and I'll go a little bit kind of off a little bit, but number one, obviously, it's always about quarterback. We've felt that at Oklahoma State. But for me, whenever I look at this tree of coaches, and Marshall and Justin know I've been pushing Coach Morris for months now, so I'm excited. But you have to be able to run the football to win big football games. I don't care what conference you're in. It gets to November, you got to run the ball. You got to be able to do it in 4-minute offense. You have to be able to do it on goal line. And there was even times where Oklahoma State really struggled on 10 yards and in when we started going only pure shotgun. We did away with the tight end. We tried to cowboy back. It really got FUBAR. That's my biggest concern is he has adapted some. There's a lot of things I love when you look at the UNT offense. He does some tight ends. He does two backs. He does some different stuff. So I've already seen creativity about that. And Coach Morris brought it up. Like, I run the football, right? I love that you say that, and I believe you. But we need to see it, because in my opinion, if you want to win the Big 12, if you want to get into the playoff games and not get blasted by 17, 21 points, you've got to be able to run football. And that means you win the battles up front in the line of scrimmage and you do what's necessary. So to your point, those numbers need to manifest itself in that way for Oklahoma State to get back to what we believe Oklahoma State can be.
Yeah, that's one thing real quick, Marshall. That's one thing I think Dana Holgerson and Lincoln Riley, I think a lot of the disciples of Leach have learned that Leach had a tough time when it got to November, when it got to, first and goal, it got a lot harder. And I think they've really his tree has really, I think, expanded a great deal with the running game. So, but I'm with you. I think that certainly is something worth watching moving forward. Hopefully Caleb Hawkins can fix that right away. We'll see. Sorry, Marshall, go ahead.
No, you're good. Yeah, the only thing that I was going to sort of talk about as far as like what could go wrong is like, this is the 6th defensive coordinator. Skylar Cassidy this is the 6th defensive coordinator in 6 years now, 6 seasons. So what could go wrong is a little bit of, consistency on that defensive side of the ball. And then it could, does that manifest itself into, like Colby mentioned, 5-7, 6-6. And then people are like, I don't really feel like donating anymore. But, I just think that defensive unit, and this is not even a knock on Skylar Cassidy by any stretch of the imagination, by all, he's on those 30 under 30 lists, 35 under 35 lists, whatever. He's on those type of things, but there's just been so much turnover on Oklahoma State's defense over the years that sort of, concerns me a little bit, just of, finding some footing there, implementing a system, things along that nature. And as far as like that 18 million number go, that's crazy. And this is something I've thought about in the time that, Gundy's been axed, is like, would he have ever learned how to operate, in terms of roster construction? Because this was really the first year that Oklahoma State tried. He went on that On3 podcast at Big 12 Media Days, and he was discussing, how he used to just sort of divvy up the NIL money around the troops, I think is what he said. and like this was like the first year that they actually, went to a college football season like a normal college football team, like like a modern college football team is. So I've wondered in my head, like, okay, if he had another, and he lost his time in doing this because they've been so not great over the last handful of years, but would he have ever, figured it out? Would he have ever figured out roster construction, given the money that he's got? That's something that's like just been in my head for a little bit. I don't know if he would have. And like I said, it got to the point where Oklahoma State couldn't wait anymore. They couldn't be like, okay, well, at some point he'll get this figured out. It got to that point that couldn't happen. But yeah, I hadn't heard that 18 million number before, and that's pretty jaw dropping stuff right there.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, I guess to wrap that topic up, one thing I want to see is, yes, it's great that he found a mess to maker who hadn't started a game in high school. That's fantastic. Amazing job getting Cam Moore. I love all these wonderful underdog stories. Go get some dudes. I don't want to rely on that, because doesn't this sound a lot like what we used to say with Gundy? Well, they're 2 and 3 stars, but gosh, I bet they'll play really well. Like we're so far past that. And so, yes. And I think if Morris was sitting here right now, I'd be like, guys, I was at Incarnate Word in North Texas. I'm at OSU now. I'm going to be recruiting a different level of athlete here. That's where I think I have some pause is he going to elevate the recruiting the way it should to chase the 3 and 4, the 4 and 5 star type talents? And not to say those guys are sure things. We all know that, but don't settle and just rely on your wizardry that's worked out in the past, because it might not work out in the future. I think Nathan had a point there.
Yeah, no, I was just going to back that up. There's two things. Like, one thing I think one of the biggest misses on this roster, this last roster, in my opinion, is like we tried to go for like that shotgun approach of like, I'm going to bring in 45 guys of decent. It's like, I would rather bring in 12 dudes and then fill in the rest, because those 12 dudes are going to make the impacts. You brought that up, right? So that's what I really want to see. And it's like, you don't have to do that anymore, but if you trust your valuation, fantastic. I know Colby, you talked about that joke. He said, like, don't be mad if I bring my 3-star quarterback. I won't be. But I want you to, like, the Jimmy Johnson's famous for creating talent valuation charts. And that's what he did for the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Hurricanes. And it sounds kind of like Eric Morris has something similar that he likes to do, especially for quarterbacks and these type of things. It's like, trust it, but you don't have to go bargain bin shopping anymore. Like, let's get some dudes in here and get after it. So I'm completely with you.
Yeah, when it comes to quarterback evaluation, I'm going to fully trust Eric Morris until he gives me a reason not to, because he has proven that he knows what he's doing at quarterback. We don't need to let 247 and rivals tell him what's going on at quarterback. I want some dudes on the offensive line and the defensive line. I want the offensive line and the defensive line to prop up the recruiting rankings at Oklahoma State. I want 4 stars walking through that door on the O-line. I want whatever quarterback he has used his formula and his spreadsheets, Raj Murdy's spreadsheets and Coach Morris's formula. I want that quarterback being protected by a bunch of dudes that are 6'6", 320 pounds and can move. And we know that whenever they're coming in. So go do your thing at quarterback. We need dudes walking through that door on both lines, because Oklahoma State's been getting pushed around in the trenches for a decade.
Yeah, and one thing I think, just going off of everything we just talked about, and something that I even called out earlier, the consistency with Gundy. He was consistent pretty much through his entire tenure, but the big fail that he had was not capitalizing on momentum that he created. And it was like, we win a Big 12, and then he didn't capitalize off that with recruiting by going to get the higher recruited guys. And it's like, what are we doing? And then you build it back up, and you get to the point where you're beating Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl, talking about we've got a logo too. And then what have you done with that since then? So I'm hoping that Gundy does not influence Morris in that way. Just like, we want to see him get these recruits. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to build it up, but actually capitalize on the momentum that you create. And, I'm just excited to see what that looks like for Morris.
Yeah, I just think the more I look back on Mike Gundy's tenure now that it's over, it really does line up for me that once NIL became a thing, he's like, I ain't doing that. And like you just go back through the history of it, early in Mike's tenure, like 08, 09, 10, I think maybe 09 was the last really good recruiting class he had. And just look at the dudes that came out of that class. I mean, it appeared to me over time, he just quit putting in the work, and that's recruiting. I don't believe in NIL, so I'm not going to do it. And that's where ultimately he failed, which we all know those things. But I do think it's encouraging that Morris, like the first day after he was announced he was going to be the head coach, he offered a 4-star linebacker out of Texas. When's the last time we did that? I mean, so that's a good sign. I'm not
Sean
out
Lewis?
on his recruiting yet.
Maybe Sean Lewis.
Yeah,
so that's good to know.
Yeah, he talked about his relationships in Texas with all the high schools down there, and I'm like, you're talking my language, coach. You are talking my language.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to like here, and I guess we need to talk some Bedlam hoops here, but I do want to open it up to the group. Just more thoughts on Eric Morris that are lingering and things you want to get out there?
Yeah, I'm just excited for the transition. We've talked about this on our show, Carson. I know you guys have too. Oklahoma State needs an identity, and for so long, that identity was offense. And I feel like Oklahoma State, since Mason Rudolph left, really has been searching for any kind of identity. And 2021, it was this magic season where they had the best defense in the country, and they were unbelievable. And that feeling was so great. 2023, Nathan, I think last week you described it as smoke and mirrors. It was a lot of smoke and mirrors. This team needs an identity. And 46 points a game, 500 yards a game, quarterbacks who throw for 300, roll out of bed and throw for 330. That's one hell of an identity, and I'm looking forward to that from Oklahoma State. I've sat through some seriously boring games. 2022, 2024, this year. I mean, my daughter's 3.5 years old, and I'm legitimately having to have conversations with her explaining why Bullet isn't running, because that's all she wants to see. She wants to see the horse. And I told her that the horse was really tired, had to rest for a couple of years, but I already told her the horse is back next year. We're going to go see Bullet run, and she's very excited.
Eric Morris is about to bring another Bullet in, from what I hear.
Where's BB? We got to get BB out there with him.
The program really went south when BB stopped showing up to games, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
Where's Warren? Where's Warren the Cowboy? He's probably like 16 now.
Yeah, he's driving.
We didn't have the NIL to keep BB. He got poached.
Yeah,
it's something that I think I've said this on our pod is even if Oklahoma State is an average football team next year, I hope they're average to the tune of losing games 45-38 instead of 12-6. I just can't sit through that anymore. That we're whenever 2011 is happening and everybody's laughing at the Big 12 because they're scoring a bunch of points. I was just like, wait, you guys like watching football that not a lot of points are scored? That's sort of weird to me. So even if this thing doesn't turn around instantly, I hope it turns around to the point where Oklahoma State is scoring in the 40s somewhat regularly again.
And that we're not getting blown out. There have been so many times since 2022 where we're getting blown out 48-0, 69-3. You have an $18 million roster. You should not be getting blown out 69-3. I don't care if it is against Oregon. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a Power 4 team lose in the manner they lost to Oregon. That looked like an FCS team. For instance, Montana State played them closer the week before. That was just jarring. But for Morris too, I am curious to see how his staff plays out, how that all is constructed, and I just get a sense that he's going to really put his stamp on things throughout the entire organization. We've already seen with the front office and all those things, but I don't know. It's going to be really, really exciting. Any more thoughts before we get to Bedlam Hoops? Okay. Paycom. I hope to see all orange up in there. I fully expect that. And look, the excuses are over for OSU fans. Hand up, me among them. I've been, wondering when Gallagher would be full. Why can't we get the fans back? I have blamed it on the product on the floor for the last 15 years. There's been zero momentum. Every time the momentum's happened, the rug's gotten pulled out with Underwood and even Mike Boynton. That they got that building full. So the excuses are over. That this team is rolling. They're undefeated, best record since 2006. I mean, hell, I was in college back then. We're going full back to my college experience, and it's sad because it's so long ago. And it's been so long since I've been excited for OSU basketball. I'm sure everyone else feels the same way, but I haven't really followed Oklahoma, Marshall. I don't know what they have to offer. I know the roster turned over just like everyone else's for the most part. I know their coach was a little bit on the hot seat last year. They ended up making the tournament, but OSU should go in there and win this game, should they not?
I think so. It's weird because the analytic websites predict this to be pretty close. Like Ken Palm keeps jumping between it being a 1-point OSU win and a 1-point OU win. So there's something analytically that's happening. But yeah, Oklahoma's got Nigel Pack, who was sort of like the first basketball NIL situation whenever he left Kansas State for Miami, and then he comes over. I think he's averaging 17 for Oklahoma this year. But yeah, Oklahoma State has just I've been at every game that I could be at. I've watched every game, and I'm still not 100% sure who the best player on the team is, and that's a good thing. Steve Lutz talked last year a lot about how guy 1 through 10, there's not a big difference in skill. And I think that was true for last year's roster. I think that's the same for this year's roster, except guy 1 through 10, like guy 10 is better than guy 1 from last year's roster. I think that's like the different part of this is this team is full of really, really good basketball players. The style of play, we're talking about Eric Morris and scoring a lot of points. They scored 84. It was the first time this season they've been below 85 in the last game. So yeah, it's super exciting. I like you guys have been waiting. I've gotten bored of talking about GIA attendance just because I've been sitting in the 300s of that arena for so long that it's not worth the Twitter mentions anymore. But yeah, it does feel like it's time. Because I've watched so much Oklahoma State basketball over recent seasons, I'm sort of waiting on the other shoe to drop. But it just feels like there's so much momentum happening right now that if Oklahoma State goes to Oklahoma City, beats Oklahoma, is going to get ranked, they come back. I just don't think there's a way that this building doesn't have at least 10,000 people in it. And Lutz has been, I know there's a lot of talk about the curtain being down. Lutz has honestly liked the curtain being down because it's forcing the crowd more towards the floor. And he's like, okay, if you guys want the curtain up, show up to the basketball games. That's something that I totally get as well. So yeah, I'm super excited about the basketball season. I'm a bit of a, I'm waiting on the other shoe to drop just because I've seen it happen with Oklahoma State basketball so many times, but this is the most back I've felt like Oklahoma State is in some time. Even the Cade year, it was hard to get super excited for because nobody could get in the arena. So yeah, it feels like Oklahoma State basketball is all the way back, but I get increasingly more terrified every time I say that.
Yeah, guys, I had a cool experience yesterday. I know it's late, but I'm going to dive into story time for just a second. My daughter and I were at Raising Cane's, and we're sitting next to this older couple. They looked like they were 85, 90, something like that. And she looks over, starts talking to my daughter, and he looks over and he sees my hat. I had my Swinging Pete hat on. He's like, "Oh, you're an OSU fan. Do you follow basketball at all?" And I was like, "Yeah, they're awesome stuff." So this guy, he's like 90 years old. He starts talking to me about Oklahoma State basketball. He starts talking to me about Parsifala. He's like, "This guy's incredible." And I'm like, "This guy knows his stuff." And come to find out, this guy's name's Jim Fleming. Jim Fleming played for Coach Iba at Oklahoma State. Jim Fleming was on the Oklahoma State team with Eddie Sutton that beat Wilt Chamberlain in 1957. I talked to this guy for like 15 minutes about Oklahoma State basketball, about everything. And
get him on the pod.
It was amazing. And I told him a little while in, he realized I kind of knew what I was talking about. And I told him about our podcast. I think he told me he was like 90 or 92. He would have no way to find our podcast. But I mean, he was awesome. And it was such a cool experience. Like the cross generations and talking about this current team. And he was talking to me about how much he loves the way they play. And he loves that they have an interior presence. And he's amazed by what the guards are able to do. He was talking about the skill level of the players these days and how incredible it is. We talked about the Wilt Chamberlain game. I asked him about Wilt Chamberlain. He said he was really slender, but obviously he was just crazy talented, like beyond belief, and they couldn't believe that they beat him, and Mel Wright hit the shot, and he was talking to me about being a principal at a high school. He hires Mel Wright all these years later to come be the basketball coach. It was an incredible experience talking to a legit old-timer from Oklahoma State who played for Coach Iba. So, yeah, that was really awesome, and I could not be more excited for this basketball team. Carson, the first time Parsifala stepped onto the floor, I got on the microphone and I said, this guy is a walking, talking personification of college basketball. He's amazing. The stash is amazing. And at his size, guys, his footwork so underrated. His touch, the way the ball comes off his fingertips, like this dude can really play. He's got a little Isaiah Hartenstein to him. And Carson, I made Thunder to Oklahoma State comparisons, and look, the Thunder made the Phoenix Suns, who are a playoff team in the West, look like a middle school team last night. The Oklahoma State is not that. I don't want to get carried away with what I'm saying. Most of what I can find with the Bedlam game this weekend is a pick 'em, but I'm really excited about the prospects of what this team could be, and I'm just like, I'm nervously on the edge of my seat waiting to get to conference play, waiting for this game Saturday, and then waiting to get to conference play to see if all my hopes and dreams for this team can be realized throughout the Big 12 schedule and into March.
I hope whenever I'm 92, I have no clue what a podcast is, but I know who Parsifala is. That's what I hope when I'm 92.
Bang.
What about you, Justin?
Well, I'll say I will be in attendance at the game, so I'm looking forward to that.
Nice.
I'm very excited about the starting potentially we're 9-0 right now. potentially being 10-0 and that 10th win being against OU, just chef's kiss. Beautiful setup with that. But I mean, yeah, just everything that I've enjoyed about basketball has been the Thunder. So it's nice to be able to have Oklahoma State. You know, I haven't been able to enjoy Oklahoma State football, so it's nice to be able to enjoy Oklahoma State basketball. And yeah, I'm excited about that. We might stay around for the women's game too, because I guess it's a 2-for-1 in Paycom Arena, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Coach Hoyt, thoughts on Bedlam?
Yeah. I was just gonna say, Coach Hoyt, man, they're filling it up too, so that won't be a bad watch. I think the biggest thing for me, and really the only reason it is a pick 'em, is because we don't know which defensive team is going to show up for Oklahoma State. Because if a decent Oklahoma State defense shows up, this is a double-digit win. If it's the defense that showed up against Grand Canyon, that's a 1-point game. So I think that's kind of why you're seeing that go back and forth, because this team has so many players that can bring the ball, they can start the offense with, that can go get their own bucket. You have several shooters. You have guys inside you can dump it down into. Like, it's a very complete offensive unit. And you see that by us being able to score against anybody. And it's always 84 and above, which, I mean, I love Coach Boynton, but I mean, gosh, how many 55-point games did we sit through? And you're just like, holy smokes. So, yeah, it's a fun watch. It's a beautiful brand of basketball. I think this team is only getting better. They've really only played whole a couple times because of injuries and being very judicious in not pushing it early in the season. But I mean, my goodness, you talk about Anthony Roy and Victorious Miller, and you got the two guards bringing it up, and then you have a presence like you talked about, Colby, we haven't had since I quite literally don't. What, Marshall Moses maybe is the last guy we had we could dump it down to and go get a bucket consistently. So yeah, it's been a long time. So I'm really excited. And I do think it's kind of a you build it and they will come. And I think this will mean a whole lot to getting this thing going in GIA if we can win this game.
Marshall, do we have statuses on Miller and the injury update?
Yeah, I think that he's going to play. I asked Lutz. We had him on Tuesday. I asked Lutz. He said game time decision because nobody tells the reporters anything injury related anymore. But Lutz went through, or not Lutz. Victorious Miller went through some portions of warm up during the Grand Canyon game. He was suited up, but they just didn't use him. So I think he's going to be good to go by the sounds of it.
Could be the difference in whether Oklahoma State is victorious in that game.
Boom. Oh no.
We need him. I wonder if he said that though, Marshall. You were there in front of him. Did he say game time decision? Wink, wink, or was it just like straight face, poker face?
I think he said he's always going to be a game time decision, and I was like, what does that even mean? What is it?
No one knows what it means, but it's provocative. People going.
Yeah, and then I'll go ask David Taylor about what's happening at 133, and he'll just be like, somebody will wrestle. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what
we'll
my job
figure
is
it out.
anymore. Yeah.
Okay, I got to know this. I wanted to say Des Bryant was a game time decision because I had always heard that he would it would be like 30 minutes, 45 minutes before the game, and no one knew where he was, and he would show up and play. Is that true?
Not necessarily, but what would happen was he would get lathered like a racing horse, and he'd cramp before the game would start. And we're like, I don't know if Des can play or not because he just got so amped up. He had to get 2 IVs 30 minutes before the game. Like that, it happened every single time. That is what would happen. Dude,
what a lunatic.
Dude could not control himself. I mean, once he cut across the white lines, like it was over. Like it was dead. And you saw that on the field. But
he's one of one.
True stories. Yeah.
One of one. Just to wrap up basketball, and the hour's late, I'm gonna make like Rob Glass and get to bed here soon. My oldest goes to middle school at like 6 a.m. She gets up like 6 a.m. But I'm excited for like the story that Colby told was fantastic, and I've got a million stories from the Eddie days and old Gallagher. I am excited for OSU basketball to get back to start new stories for people Marshall's age and younger to have their own. I'm sure Marshall and people younger are tired of hearing about what it used to be. This place used to be great. Like I'm so ready to move past that and turn, kind of like with Eric Morris taking over football. I'm ready to turn the page, go kick OU's ass in Paycom, and let's get this thing rolling. So those are my final thoughts on hoops. Guys, this was a ton of fun. Any final thoughts, or are we going to get out of here?
My era has the Trae Young game, and that's like the only thing that I think back to whenever I'm like, good basketball memories. It's the Trae Young game, and that's literally just about it.
Which was what, like 48 to 46?
It went into OT, so it was probably 58-56. Thank you.
That's the Mitchell Solomon game.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. More remembered by Mitchell Solomon diving across the floor.
I'm glad that we can put up twice as many points just because we're a Let's team now. So that's good.
My only recent memory of college basketball, I went to the game in Norman when Cade dropped 40 on him and Oklahoma State won in overtime, and that was a really, really fun game. So this was a blast, guys. Normally, Justin, this is the first time we've ever gotten to chop it up. Nathan and I, we wind up next to each other on the driving range from like March to October. Once every couple of weeks, we'll end up, one of us will come out of the range, the other one will be out there. We'll set up side by side. And if anybody wants to sponsor that show and we can release that, I don't know that that's made for public consumption, but that's the good stuff out on the driving range.
I'm envious. I need y'all's schedules to go out there and hit some balls. But guys, this is great. This has been the Reload podcast, the Pistols Firing podcast, and hopefully we get a Bedlam win, and we'll see you guys next week.